I contend that in 1949, the 49 Cadillac I thought was the best car in the world. You got a V8 with overhead valves, you had power windows, you had air conditioning, you had an automatic transmission. CIA, a bunch of CIA guys, they're in one of these. If someone's guarding a rock star, they're in one of these. A cassette. How old am I? A cassette. Hey.
You're watching this video, so the chances are great that you enjoy what we create here at the Audrain. And if you do, why not take the next step and subscribe to this channel? You might also consider a membership in the Audrain Automobile Museum. We mount 4 new exhibitions each year featuring cars from the Audrain collections and loans from some of the leading collectors and institutions around the world. Click here to find out more. So Jay, in 1940,
yes,
the world looked rather different than they would imagine just a year later, but things are still pretty positive. In the automotive realm, the Depression was still very much with the car makers, but they still pressed on, making as dramatic and luxurious cars as they could possibly get away with.
Yeah.
And by the time we come to the production of this 1941 Cadillac Series 61, things sort of seem to be stabilized.
Yeah, this is what my dad would define as a good old girl. This is kind of what a classic car was when I was a kid. In the 60s, this car would have been, literally 25 years or whatever it might be, So you could pick them up for $400 or $500. And these old Cadillac V8s were pretty bulletproof. They really built a good car. I've got a 1918 Cadillac, and that is also a V8. And it had twin water pumps, and it never overheated. It was just fantastic. I've got a 25 Caddy. I've got a 57, and this 41. I have to admit, though, this is the body style that least appeals to me. I like the 20s. I like the 30s. I always found these a bit difficult to work on because you had to literally stand on the fenders. The engine was down, and you lift that big hood, and down in that hole there's a motor down there.
That was one of the great design advances of the 41 over the 40, the fact that the hood was deeper, so you could actually open up more of the hood to get to the engine better. But it's also quite interesting, again, a point of the transition, the fact that the Series 61 in this year replaced the LaSalle, which had finally been discontinued.
Right.
So this is the entry level of the Cadillac brand. And it's also, a lot of people, we've had this discussion before, a lot of people who are GM devotees say that these Cadillacs are terrific cars, but the 1940 and 41 Buicks are very much sort of the equal of these and more interesting in some ways.
Right.
But it's interesting too, because when this car was new, it was priced almost equal to a 41 Buick.
But you got a Cadillac.
But you got a Cadillac, exactly. And it's one of those things as well, which is so interesting, the fact that this basic engine, this 346 cubic inch engine, after the war, of course, is the same engine that powered the Series 61 coupe that Briggs Cunningham took to Le Mans.
Right.
So it's, and the fact that Cadillac is back in Le Mans, things have come to if not a full circle, certainly continued in a very interesting way.
My dad used to call Cadillac the Rolls Royce of automobiles, and we have this. It can't be the Rolls Royce. That's also a car, but that to him, Cadillac was the brand because in America that was the prestige, and well deserved. I contend that in 1949, the 49 Cadillac I thought was the best car in the world. You got a V8 with overhead valves, you had power windows, you had air conditioning, you had an automatic transmission, when Rolls-Royce was still a 6-cylinder with a manual shift, with no air conditioning, and none of the heater and all well, you got a heater, but not like America. Americans build heating and air conditioning like gangbusters. And this is a pretty powerful car. Look how this thing accelerates.
Absolutely, it climbs a hill beautifully.
I'm stunned at how quick it is.
And it's also very comfortable. You know, it's one of those things that the entire system of what makes, what delivers a ride to the interior.
Right.
It's the springs, it's the tires, it's the wheels, it's the upholstery.
Right.
I mean, we are cushioned in a cushioned ride.
Right.
So we get a level of comfort here. Plus, I happen to think that this is probably one of my favorite styles of a 1940-41 Cadillac. This what they call sport limousine, or the sedan.
Right.
Because it's really sort of a racy, kind of an aerodynamic thing. And thinking about the fact that people are still slightly scared of aerodynamic design, even in 1940, thanks to the failure of the airflow. But this has a very modern, forward look, without talking about the forward-looking Chrysler, but a forward-looking appearance.
And the 3-on-a-tree transmission with such a huge improvement.
One of the greatest ergonomic developments ever.
Yeah.
And it's still to this day, I think it's probably the most convenient way to shift.
Right.
Shifting on the floor is nice, but not having to move your hands. It's like paddle shifting, but with positive control. And just going back to the design of the car, it's also a pleasure. Although this is the entry-level Cadillac, there's still such incredible detail that you knew that you were spending money, and people could see the money you were spending.
Right.
This dashboard is absolutely wonderful. It's got this beautiful radio with the presets for the local stations.
Right.
This car was delivered new to New Jersey, and so you have WMCA, WEAI, WOR, WJZ, WABC, all the New York stations.
Yeah, that's funny, because I know at Chrysler too, they would give you a sheet of stickers with your local radios, and you would put them on the dial.
It's absolutely fantastic, and also, again, thinking about the development of cars and shapes and sizes. Our good friend Ed Welburn has given a presentation for the Audrain called Longer, Lower, Wider, in which he traces the size and passenger compartments, windshield height, cowl height of cars from the late 1930s through the 1950s, 60s, 70s, and then to today's crossovers. Right. And found that we basically come back to where we started.
Right.
This is the size and height of a modern crossover.
I know.
But it's a sedan.
Yeah.
So,
it drives very nicely. I mean, just the fact that we're having this conversation shows how quiet and smooth it is. Brakes are okay. When you realize people really don't go much over 45 miles an hour back in the day, because the roads couldn't take it. Maybe on the freeway you got up to a mile a minute. Oh my God, my father would do that. Slow down, you go a mile a minute. I can pop the speed limit 65.
Your eyeballs are going to fall out. I think about this as a pre-interstate car.
Right.
So you're driving the U.S. highways, the U.S. routes, 45, 50 miles per hour were the speed limits. A particularly open stretch, if you're out west with unlimited speeds, you would go 65.
Yeah.
And there wouldn't be another car on the road, so you wouldn't have to worry about stopping.
And when you watch old movies, the carpetbaggers and the hustlers, they'd always pull into town in a big Cadillac like this.
I do want to say this, that also this car has been in the same family for a very long time, I believe since it was new, and was recently donated to the Audrain Automobile Museum, so it's part of the collection. And it's great to have, again, cars with a wonderful family story and history. Right. Which is fantastic to
But I have
share.
to admit, it is so easy to drive, and the fact that there's no power steering, yet I wouldn't call it one finger ease, but certainly not hard to drive, easy to drive.
Well, I think that was also one of the hallmarks of what GM was trying to do with Cadillac, is to make a car that's very easy to drive. And again, this particular model, the sedan, was offered as we are driving in today as an open car, but also was available with a divider window to be chauffeur driven. But they realized that more and more cars of this class were being owner driven. So they wanted to make sure that it was a car that was very comfortable and capable for the owner driver, not just for the professional driver.
And I like this era before a lot of power assist, because everything was nicely weighted and nicely balanced. So you get just a sense of the wheels going exactly where you want it to, and you're just cruising along effortlessly. I mean, it's pretty quiet. I mean, if you were to blindfold someone, this could be a modern car.
Absolutely. And one of the things that sets it apart from a modern car is something which I don't think is necessarily an advance. I love these vent windows.
The vent windows, and you have the big cowl
vent,
so you can get air into the car.
Correct. We've only got the front windows down, the cowl vent open. I've got my quarter vent open, and it's a beautiful, comfortable ride. If we put the back windows down, we get even more air flowing through the car, and I think it's just absolutely brilliant. I think we've lost so much of that in our artificial air conditioning age.
Yeah, it's like office buildings where the windows don't open. You know?
Yeah, and frankly, what we gain in a fraction of mile per gallon because of airflow in the car, I think that we lose with just being able to actually breathe air. It's especially on a summer day like this, what could be better?
Yeah. Well, it does drive very nicely. It's a real pleasure to drive this thing. And I enjoy just flicking this gear lever. You can pull away in second if need be. You've got synchromesh only in the top 2 gears, but
look at that.
You don't really need first. You can go right down at 2 miles an hour in second and pull away with no snatch.
Which, again, it goes back to one of your favorite measures of performance back in the early motoring days.
Right.
The point of pride was how slowly you could pull away and smoothly in top gear.
Right.
And, this still comes from a bit of that engineering mindset. So we've seen where Cadillac was on the eve of World War II.
Right.
A car which is comfortable, well built, gives adequate performance certainly, and great quality of build. Now we'll take a look at where Cadillac is today and some of the offerings there.
Well, you talk about they made a huge effort to World War II, and you can still see some of those tank-like qualities in the new Escalade. So let's go check that out.
Exactly. So Jay, we've left 1940 or 41,
right,
and we're now in 2023 in a totally different kind of Cadillac.
Well, we're sitting high up like the old Cadillac.
A little higher than the old Cadillac.
A little higher than the old Cadillac. It is funny, no more of that longer, leaner, lower stuff. This thing is like, it's kind of
Tell us what we're in.
Well, we're in a 2023 Cadillac Escalade V with just about 700 horsepower for all intents and purposes. And this thing is a bit like your sister's goofy lineman football player boyfriend in high school, big, dumb, plenty of power, moves fast, It just makes me laugh. In America, horsepower cures a lot of problems. People go, I don't like this thing, until they put their foot down. They go, oh my God, this thing is, because we're all about acceleration. Cornering, it's a necessity, but we don't look at it, for years we look at it.
Can I just make a right angle?
Yeah, exactly. So I have to admit, I drove this, I was laughing the whole time. With 700 horsepower, it's obviously not a sports car or a Camaro.
Not at 7,000 pounds, no.
No, Camaro or a Corvette, but something, it's about as close as you can get, and it just makes me laugh. I find this thing so funny. Dun, 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 dun. That's like that everywhere you go, Everything's black, and the build quality is actually quite good. If you're in Afghanistan, you would just put a machine gun on the roof and open the sunroof and fire out and drive this thing right up to the front line.
Thank God we're in Rhode Island. But now, compared to the 41 Cadillac Series 61, do we feel the family resemblance?
Well,
is there anything here that ties us to that car?
Well,
and of course, am the master of the tenuous connection, and I don't see one yet.
I think there's a prestige. When Cadillac started to make their mark in the early teens with their first V8, there were 350 car manufacturers in America, 350 brands. Now there's only a few left, and Cadillac has managed to weather it. And Cadillac has done something that I've never seen any other automobile brand do successfully. They were your father's car, your father's Cadillac, the automatic transmission, the big V8. The last stick Cadillac was like 1948 manual transmission. Then they came back as a sporty brand, and they drove their demo down. You know, most car manufacturers' demo gets older. Cadillac was in the 60s and 70s, you know, retirees in Florida, they want a big Cadillac. And now you got young people that want a bat wing, and they want it with the stick, and they want the high performance V8. I mean, it's an impressive turnaround. And this kind of combines both. It gives you the comfort in the seat from your dad's Cadillac with the sporting pretensions of the younger sedan. It's quite impressive.
A couple of points that you brought up, which I think are important to talk a little bit more about. Cadillac's demographic was certainly always older, but that also was sort of a natural consequence of being at the top of the GM ladder of brands.
Right.
You had to earn your way up, unless, of course, it was also, of course, the shortcut. When you had made it, even if you were young, you bought a Cadillac, Elvis Presley.
Right.
You know, that was the thing, so you could sort of short circuit it if you made a sudden success. And the other thing is that it is very difficult for a brand to reposition itself in terms of its demographic without losing a core essence of the brand.
Right.
Cadillac still remains a premium brand that stands for quality and performance and all those things, and you need to convince a younger audience that those attributes can be best found in your product as opposed to somebody else's product that puts up the same numbers.
Right. Actually, the other company that's doing it pretty successfully, and this one seems like a reach, is Rolls-Royce.
Yes.
That had the oldest demo in the world. And now it's rap stars, it's young musicians. You go into a Cadillac showroom, oh my God, the colors that, you know.
A Rolls-Royce showroom.
Yeah, you go in a Rolls-Royce showroom, it's like, you know, Timothy Leary's head exploded.
Exactly. I think
bright oranges and all kinds of weird things, you know?
That reinvention is more about appearance than performance.
Well, that's true.
And it's a very interesting thing with this. As you said, it's a high-performance truck, which to me is still slightly oxymoronic,
right.
Although they have become so incredibly common today. You know, I still think of the fact that a week or so ago, I fell madly in love with a 1940 GMC pickup truck,
right.
which was the very essence of utility.
Right.
You know, there's nothing fancy about this truck. If you put on your suit to drive it into town on Saturday, it was a big deal, and you probably had to put a car cover on the seat so that you wouldn't sit on the hay
right.
that was still in the car, the truck rather. But with this, it's really interesting because you have all of these various controls for modes. Before we left, I put it into the maximum sport mode for every category. Steering, suspension, shifting, because after all, why not take advantage of the power that this has?
Right.
When I started up and started out on the road, a very strange thing happened. I heard the engine sound, which was very aggressive on startup. When you lift off of the throttle, you get that sort of overrun burble.
Right.
But it all seems as if it's happening in a car behind us.
Right.
It's not really this car.
That's right. But you know, that's like an American thing. It makes me laugh. Like the Hummer, biggest, clumsiest, most fuel inefficient vehicle. Rather than make a smaller, let's just make a bigger, so they come out with the electric Hummer.
Right.
And it makes, because there you go.
Bigger, heavier, quieter.
Yeah, we Americans, we get to keep doing, you know, it's like smoking and exercising. I like to exercise, but I like to smoke too. Can you make a cigarette to smoke?
Use on the treadmill.
Yeah, use on the treadmill. You know, and that's really what it is. This thing is kind of, it's everything to everybody. It's fast like a Mustang or a muscle car. In fact, I would guess this is faster than any muscle car from the 60s.
Oh,
right
God,
now.
yes.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my God.
How many
yes.
speed transmissions is
The
it?
10-speed transmission.
It's 10 speeds.
And you're able to get an advertised 15 miles to gallon on the highway.
Yeah, there you go.
With this, which is extraordinary in a truck that weighs this much with this much power. You know, trying to describe that to somebody in 1970, when emissions controls and economy controls were just coming out, people thought, oh, well, that's it. You know, maybe you can get 180 horsepower, we can get, 19 miles to the gallon, and we're heroes.
Yeah, when I bought my Viper in '72, I always tell this story, but the salesman said, you'll never see 400 horsepower in a production car again, so you better get this thing now while you can. Oh, okay, I mean, I fell for it. I believed it. But it's fun to drive, isn't it?
It is remarkably so. It's one of those things that you think about. That is hysterical. It literally, I mean, the truck is certainly moving forward,
right,
at a fairly rapid rate, but it feels like. Did you put a sports car in the back?
Yeah,
behind the seats?
It's like in Bono and U2. Get them to the stage right now.
Right.
And this is what that's for. And you know, it's become the vehicle of choice. Whenever you watch a movie now and there's a bunch of CIA guys, they're in one of these. You know,
exactly.
if someone's guarding a rock star, they're in one of these. It really has become the new norm.
Well, thinking back to our 1941 Cadillac, this is a really efficient way to do a modern fast limousine. You're upright, you've got tons of space, you can carry luggage, and you can cover ground quickly.
You know, there was nothing worse than those old stretch limousines.
Oh my gosh.
Because you had to get on all fours and crawl in on your hands and knees, and women in gowns crawling in. You know,
and of course, you were always worried. I was always worried about, you know, going over a grade crossing and just having a whole thing split in two. You know?
Yeah, but no, they
like badly bred dachshunds or something, you know.
Yeah, these body on chassis. I mean, it sounds great.
It does, you know, and I'm glad also that they do give you the choice, because you are driving a big, quiet, comfortable truck.
Right.
So you can turn that all down if you want to and still have the go underneath your right foot. But it's a fairly remarkable achievement, especially considering the fact that Cadillac has done so much to publicize its very well considered introduction of electric models.
Right.
You know, the Lyric, which is a terrific vehicle, the ultra luxury Celestique, which I guess is the American version of the new Rolls-Royce Spectre.
Right.
You know, a bespoke electric car. So it's very interesting, and also, again, for me, because I talk about this all the time, perhaps too much. People will tell me in the comments, I'm sure, that there are horses for courses. An electric Escalade would be quite marvelous, but I think it's also great that we have this one.
Right, you will have an electric, because it'll just be a Hummer. It'll be the Hummer running gear in this car. Mm-hmm. And it'll go 300 miles on a charge, and it'll weigh 5 tons.
But it won't have that back burble.
Yeah. Well, who knows? Maybe put a cassette in there. A cassette. How old am I? A cassette.
Hey, you know what? This has got every luxury feature. Maybe we can get the under-dash record player.
I know, that's right.
You know, this is certainly a very expensive vehicle, just as for its time that 1941 Cadillac was an expensive vehicle. But, you know, everything is relative. When you think about the fact that sort of the average family car is a $60,000 or $70,000 car, this costs twice that.
Right.
When you went back to the average family car in the 1960s, if you doubled the price, you didn't get to a Rolls-Royce.
Right.
So again, the combination of space, build quality.
Would you rather have this or a Lamborghini Urus?
Without a doubt, this.
Yeah.
But I'm not a big truck guy, so the Lamborghini Urus to me doesn't fulfill either role very
this
well.
One, you can.
This is the utility. I can put paintings in this.
Yeah.
You can put furniture in this.
Yeah, exactly.
And people.
You can sleep in it.
Could sleep in it, exactly. And of course, you know what we always say: if you ever have to choose between your house and your car, choose your car, because you can sleep in your car, but you can't drive your house.
Well, it's Winnebago, but yeah.
Cadillac then and now. Thanks, Jay.